Okay, so first of all, macroeconomic outlook. Okay, so essentially, this is almost like asking the committee to tell what your PF is. Okay, so let's assume that you have exposure to the foreign exchange rate. Okay, so you have exposure to the foreign exchange rate, great, right? And you're asking the committee, or at least you hope that the committee, which could be either actually it may be a committee established by the regulators, it may be an economic paper, a macroeconomic paper or forecast, or it may be a committee within the bank, right? So the committee within the bank decides that that's what the scenario that it's 10% likelihood, right? So you ask them, okay, so what is the 10% or 5%, two quantiles, right? Up or down? What's it? Let's say they're thinking on 10% probability. What's the highest FX rate with 10% at 90% confidence level? Was the highest and lowest FX rate? Okay, so this seems very basic. However, that's how a lot of this real-world measure works, and including in some of the, I cannot mention specific client names, but I know that among our clients, a lot of banks do that, sometimes in an ad hoc way and sometimes in a very sophisticated way, essentially asking, what's the FX rate range with a certain confidence level? Right, and let's say that the Committee of Economists decided that this currency, cannot go over the next, let's say, 10 years or a certain period of time. It cannot double with, it will double with less than 10% probability and lose half its value also with less than 10% probability. Perfect, that's all you need, right? So you have a range, so you have your drift, and you have your width of the distribution. In this case, you can put your model and calibrate it. It's almost like the option price, right? So you have your model, and then you have 2 points. It's almost like you have in the money option and out of the money option, right? Or maybe they even come up with a median, right? So they can essentially give you as many quantiles as they like, at any quantile level as they like, right? That they could give you 10%, 5%, 1%. 1% would probably be subject to a lot of risk, because of a tail, right? So normally typical is 5 or 10% scenario. Right, and then if you think of it, essentially it's almost like you're asking them to give you the PFE, right? Because if they're talking about the FX rate, and you have exposure to the FX, like through, for example, cross-currency swaps, essentially you're asking them, what's your maximum PFE at, or not maximum PFE, what's your PFE at the 30-year horizon, right? If you have FX forward. And in a lot of cases, the bank would have economists who are predicting this or forecasting the scenarios for the bank. And then they would like to use this for limits. And for limits, nobody can tell them, regulators will not come and tell them that, no, you cannot use that for the limits, right? Because limits is something that typically is internal, right? As long as there is limit management, that's probably the least area of least regulatory oversight. Exactly how you model limits, right? So, okay, so the economists are saying that that's what the forecasts are, and then the limit management system uses that for simulation, and then it tells you, given the portfolio that you have, how this forecast is translating into the quantile of your PFE, right? Or the economists may just say that the rate. So sometimes it's one quantile, sometimes it's multiple quantiles, and sometimes it's just the override on the drift, right? So in other words, instead of assuming that future value is whatever is implied by the forward, or today's value, or one of these B or fear estimates, right, which are essentially an adjustment to today's value, which normally is less than 30% in most cases, right? So it's not a huge adjustment. They can say, actually, we believe that this is where the FX rate is going, right? So they give you essentially the median or the, because there's no discounting, right? So you cannot talk about the expected, right? So they give you the median, right? And then you can figure out what the width of the distribution is from using some of these other methods. Okay, so now, how common is that? Well, there is this opinion that it's very hard to get this data. What I found is that, in fact, it's the opposite that's true. So sometimes your model, when it contradicts this data, then you're challenged, right? So for example, you build a model which is, let's say, risk neutral, and it gives you some probability of FX rate being above a certain level in 30 years. And you hear back, oh, no, that's not right, because our economists have forecast that this probability is actually not 5%, but 10%, right? So what I found is actually, it's not that you cannot find this data. Very often you have to respect this data because it's given to you, right? Even if you already have a model that's calibrated in a different way. And also there are some rating agency forecasts, right? So, and again, this is of course not exact science, right? And nobody can claim exact science over something that will happen in 30 years. But here's the Moody's, and by the way, that's not the only one. It's just the first one that I randomly found. Moody's 2013 U.S. macroeconomic outlook alternative scenarios. Okay, forecast assumptions. Scenario 1, stronger than near-term rebound. Scenario 6, oil price increase, dollar crash, inflation. Okay.